This tombstone here is Refugia Diaz's grave. So your second great-grandmother Concepcion's sister.
Correct.
And so she, born 1838, just after the Alamo battle, is whenever they had their first child, I believe she was. So their father was Canuto Diaz.
Yes.
And he supposedly is buried here because he wasn't buried in the walls of San Juan. He wasn't buried at San Jose with his second wife. And he was Canuto was a Texas volunteer through Seguin's army, or a military unit, militia, and he fought as a mission native scout and recon.
And
his brother Julian.
His brother is Julian, right?
Yeah, Julian. Yeah. And they received pensions in the 1870s, $200.
Is that what they got?
Yeah, for fighting in it.
Yeah.
And they also lost a lot of land, but that's a whole nother story, right?
Okay.
And then behind this headstone of Maria Refugia is Adelina Cantu. She's Refugia's daughter. Same birth date as me, October 20th.
Cool.
And she married Lucio Cantu,
Okay.
who's buried here. And they are my second great-grandparents. He was fighting against the same government that Zapata and Pancho Villa fought against years later,
Really?
15 years later.
That's
the same
interesting.
government. And so Lucio and the Garza, the man that Cipriano Garza funded it. You know, they were battling against that government 15 years prior as revolutionaries.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
It's very amazing.
Yeah, the Garza Revolution.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a wonderful little cemetery.
One thing I wanted to ask you or tell you about, you know, when I never told you this story, but when we met, I met you at La Segunda, right? At our friend Eddie's place. And I've been working from home for about 4 years. So I don't know if I told you, but I don't normally leave the house, you know, come Sunday evening, probably not until Friday evening. So I'm there all day, right? And I do my stuff. I have my normal routine. And by the time Friday comes around, I'm ready to, you know, take a shower, get dressed, you know, make a cocktail. And, you know, sometimes we'll go to Eddie's place, especially like on First Friday. I love doing that, right? So that time I met you, who were you with? You were with... I
don't know.
I think you walked in with, what's his name? Can't remember his name. You walked in with one of Eddie's friends, and he introduced me to you. And I said, oh, okay, nice to meet you, Carl. And we walked in, and I went straight to the vinyl section, right? And you know, it was nice and relaxing. Eddie always has good music playing, and I'm there looking. Laura, I think, was having a conversation with Eddie or looking around, and I love going there because I like to look at every single thing in that store. I love antique stores.
Yeah.
Right. I love garage sales. I love flea markets. I'm just into that. So I was like in my zone. I'm relaxing and everything, and then this guy comes up to me after I met you. And, you know, I'm looking through the vinyl, and you started talking to me, and I was like, man, I'm in my zone, right? I didn't know you very well. So.
Yeah, we didn't know each other. We met one time prior to that.
No, that was the day I met you.
I thought we met one time before.
That was the day I met you.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and I'm looking through the vinyl, and I'm saying, man, oh, that looks like a nice one. That's a jewel right there. I'm looking through that, and I was in my zone. You know, I had my drink with me and stuff, and drinking, listening to music, and Carl comes up to me. You come up to me and you start talking to me, and I'm kind of like, man, I'm trying to look through this stuff right now. You know, I don't really feel like talking and not to sound rude or anything.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, let me go ahead and stop, and I'll give this dude, you know, a few minutes because I'm going to do some shopping here. And it was funny because, you know, at first, you know, first impression, I mean, you look like a nice guy and everything, but I was kind of like, man, this guy is kind of like getting in the way of my Friday evening, you know what I'm saying? And But it was all good. You know, we started talking, and then we started talking about ancestry, and you know, I think you asked me, and I told you, you know, I come from Casas, and I think that's what triggered it.
Yeah.
And then we started talking, and then we eventually exchanged phone numbers, right? And I think I called you first. So I usually make my calls to my friends or family on Saturdays when I'm running there. So I said, let me call Carl up and stuff. So we started getting into this conversation, and then he started sending me images of, you know, documents, photos of our ancestors from the mission and stuff. So it was really good. You know, I'm glad that we met. But the first time I met you, I was kind of like,
who's this guy?
Who's this dude? You know, he's getting in the way of
my
time.
I'm off work today. I need to be alone in public.
Yeah, it was good. It was good, but it was a good experience. It was so nice. And
yeah, I can be a little bit pushy.
No way. No, you're good.
I hope I didn't just sound like me.
No,
you know, it was like, it was more like, you know, I'm like, okay, this is Eddie's friend. He's another guy from South San. That's what I asked you. I was like, oh, you want Eddie's friends from South San? Because all those guys are from South San.
Yeah, and I think that's what I know. These guys are all younger than me. I went to Harlandale.
Yeah, and I said, oh, I went to McCullum, and we acted like, you know, rivals, right?
Definitely, yeah.
And that's when we're talking about the Southside.
Yeah.
Kind of laughing about Southside.
Yeah.
And then, you know, somehow I figured I got that in too.
Yeah.
You know, like the history stuff.
Because which I didn't mind.
Because when I don't talk about that, nothing happens.
Yeah.
But when I do talk about it to people that don't know, if I think it's something they would be interested in, if we have a connection already, oh, we're from the South Side, let me bring this up. Because to me, if you're from the South Side, there's a good chance that you're from some older families that lived here before.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then within an hour, I think we figured it out.
Yep.
Because you called Linda, right?
Did I call? No, I didn't call her that day, because if I called her...
No, but you brought her up.
I
knew her.
Yeah.
And I remembered her.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh yeah, if you're related to Linda, then we're related.
Yeah.
And then you brought up Casas.
I described her, and you said, oh yeah, that's her. And then Laura was looking around, you know, she was like wondering where I was at. And she noticed we had been talking. We were talking for, you know, a good while.
Yeah.
And stuff. So yeah, we're in a pretty deep conversation.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a, you know, it is good to meet you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it just happened last year.
Yeah, a year ago.
Yeah. So I want to talk about our childhood growing up here in the South Side and around the missions and everything. I told you that, well, you know that I grew up in the Harlandale district area. I went to Harlandale, and I went to St. Leal's as well. I grew up in that area off of South Flores. And where I grew up was on Brunswick, right there off of South Cross and 35. And, you know, I had my buddies, you know, my parents, friends, kids, we all hung around, and I was actually the youngest one. The others were a year, and then the other one was about a year older. And we often rode our bicycles over here. So we were always in this area. I mentioned this used to be like my backyard.
Yeah.
And it's just so crazy. We were like little and probably elementary school where we were riding our bicycles over here. Nowadays, I don't see any parents letting their kids, you know, go across.
Kids don't even walk to school anymore.
Yeah, they don't walk to school anymore. And we walked to school. I mean, when I went to Catholic school, of course, we had a bus. But, you know, as soon as I went to Harlandale Middle, we all walked to school, you know. It was a pretty good distance. Well, what I'm getting at is that as kids, you know, we would come out here on our bicycles. We were little, man. I mean, like 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. And our parents didn't even know where we were. You know, that's how much times have changed, right? We would come here. We would get in the water right there by the Espada Dam. We would ride our bicycles to the aqueducts and get in that watering hole. There used to be a rope hanging off of that tree. And we used to, you know, get on that rope and jump in the water. And our parents had no idea where we were. We'd go to, on a Saturday morning, I'd go with my friends to Conception Park, which is no longer there, right? We got rid of the park. And we'd be Saturday morning about 11 o'clock, and we'd be swimming in the river. The water was full on, you know, it was beautiful back then. It's just crazy how much times have changed, but, you know, times have changed. You know, kids don't go anywhere. Their parents don't let them go anywhere because times are different now. You can't do that. So, you know, speaking of my childhood, you know, I came from a family that had issues, and, you know, there was, I don't know about everybody's family, but it looked like my other friends' families, you know, they all got along. Not that I didn't have any good times or anything like that, we had good times. But you know, when you have like a single parent, you know, parents ended up getting divorced. Parents are still married when I was in elementary school, but you know, back then I remember going to juvenile when I was in the 4th grade.
Really?
Yeah, 4th grade. I look at a 4th grader now. I was like, man, this dude's a baby, or she's a baby, you know? Yeah, it's just, you know, I was a crazy kid, you know, I hung around with some, these are other friends that I hung around also.
Older?
About the same age, and not, these weren't like, at one point I was hanging around with guys other than the guys that grew up on my block. And, you know, hanging out with different people, crazy, we're into bikes and all that stuff, you know. Tearing bikes apart, rebuilding, painting them, and doing all this crazy stuff. And you know, they were very cool dudes, but sometimes you hang around with the wrong people when you go to juvenile. You know, it's just weird. So, you know, it was a little rough at times, you know, growing up, and especially after your parents get divorced, you have a single parent, right? And you know, you just go through some things like that. But you know, I'm 58 now. And you know, I didn't end up that bad. You know, I'm still here, and I'm not that bad. I'm not perfect, but I'm not that bad. You know, so.
Well, you're not in jail.
Yeah, and I'm not in jail. I'm
that
still
early stuff in 4th grade, that was just something that happened, and it probably taught you a valuable lesson too. You know, not to get in trouble.
Yeah, and not that I didn't get in trouble as a teenager, because I mean I did, but you know, just talking about our childhood days, and like I said, you know, we're always hanging around this area all the time, and when we were able to drive, we would still tend to drive to these areas over here.
The same areas that you rode your bike to. You're just a little bit older. You're driving.
Older and hanging out with our buddies, drinking beer, listening to music, and just cruising around this whole area. So this, like I said, it's like my backyard over here. Since I don't live on this part of town anymore, you know, I do come over here. You know, my dad's buried at the Mission Cemetery, and my mother's at San Jose. So they're right across the street from each other. So I come over here, you know, to come visit them and pay my respects. But it just feels so weird when I come over. I don't come as often as I used to, but it feels good. And it feels good to be here today. You know, it's a beautiful day, and it's awesome. Yeah, so I can't say I didn't have a bad childhood. I had an awesome childhood, you know, growing up. So I don't know about you, you know, I think you probably did more or less the same thing.
It sounds the same. Like, you know, I grew up 2 miles from San Juan Mission, straight across Stinson Memorial Stadium, across 6 Mile Creek where the baseball field is, Five Diamonds. I played Little League baseball there when I was a boy. It's the only sport I ever played was hardball. I didn't play sports in schools. I wasn't a very good student.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because...
I wasn't either.
You know, like I had a good family. I remember being like, you know, from being born till I was about 4, you know, your really early years, I was around my mother and father's family in South San, so everybody was together.
Oh, okay.
You were always being huddled and loved by your aunts and your grandparents and great-grandparents, and it was a real, I don't remember all those times, but I can remember little glimpses, especially as I got a little bit older after my mom remarried, and we moved out of South San and moved just right over here by Five Diamonds, off South Flores, and, you know, life was good, and if there were things that weren't good growing up in my household, it was because my parents were so young.
Oh, okay.
You know, they're like 25.
Wow.
Right? And so think about being 25 and how much you're learning still. And when they had more responsibility than I had at 25. You know, they had children and things to take care of. I didn't have children. You didn't have children. So, you know, we got to be kids a little longer, if you will. And I remember riding my bike Saturday morning, like you said. You know, I might watch the earliest cartoon right when I got up before my parents woke up, and then I could hear them moving. I'd get on the bike and take off.
Crazy. I was into American Bandstand, so I had to watch American Bandstand first, and then get on my bike. It's all good.
But the bikes were everything. And you know, when you're older with the cars, like the older kids and the older young men of the neighborhood, they would be working on their cars. Everybody did it together in the garage. Had Kono, oldie rock and roll playing, and
KTSA
people were in there
as well.
working on the car, KTSA. And I remember my dad or my neighbors, somebody was just hanging out in the garage, and the guy that knew what he was doing the work, and everyone else was leaning there like trying to learn.
Checking it out,
And so then as a little kid, you're learning by just being there and watching, whether it be pouring a concrete driveway, changing brakes on your car, you know, whatever. Everyone did the work themselves pretty much, and you had a neighbor that could help or an uncle. But the bikes, you know, my dad was an auto mechanic, so with my bicycle, I would take it apart, like you were saying, change out stuff, paint the frame to have a new bike.
Oh yeah.
And then you just hit it. You know, hit the river in the morning, the creeks, the missions.
Yeah, that was a normal thing back then.
I didn't even need to have friends with me. Sometimes it was just easier just to be by yourself.
Yeah, and that's one thing I didn't mention. I would come by myself. I would just get on my bike and just go by myself. No one else was around. Well, I'm going to go by myself.
And be gone all day.
Be gone all day. Go in the river by myself and go swimming. I mean, yeah.
There's so much independence for like a young person. I mean, we tend to like think that we learn everything through our parents' values and our schools and everything. But sometimes you learn the most important things, in my opinion, with yourself.
Yeah.
And how the world's working and what you need to navigate through.
Definitely.
I wish I would have had, I did. I mean, I can't say I didn't have a mentor, because I had a man in my life at about age 11 or 12 that came in, a neighbor. He was like a big brother.
Oh, cool.
And I was the oldest out of my siblings. And from my mom and dad's, my mom's first marriage, I was the only child. And so because of that, I didn't have an older person to look up to. And, you know, my dad wasn't around, my stepdad was busy. You know, you didn't have a male role model.
Yeah. I kind of felt like that as well.
So I had my neighbors and other people being role models, but to have my neighbor kind of take me under his wing and put me to work. You know, age 12, I'm like his helper at trimming trees, working a barbed wire fence, or working some animals. It was always something. And so everyone thought I was his son, and we would laugh like, he's not even old enough. He was like 22 and I was 11. His name was Doyle, Mo, short. But he was a very valuable person in my life that I give him and his wife so much for helping me just be a young man, you know.
That's cool.
I don't talk to him very much anymore, and we talk maybe a little bit.
We should get in contact with him.
Yeah, he just said hi to me the other day on social media, which he's never on.
Wow.
So that was nice.
Yeah, it'd be nice to just reach out to him, say what's going on, and you know, this cool dude named Victor. I don't know. Something.
Yeah, I know. I'll save that for another day. But you know, I tell everybody about you because you're so amazing.
What? That's funny. Man.
But you know, too, like when we're kids, remember being here, going to the Mission Drive-In.
Oh man, I didn't even mention that.
You know, I remember when what's it called? Close Encounters of the Third Kind. We went and got in line. The line was like a mile long of cars.
That's crazy.
And we got about almost to the entrance, and there was capacity, so we had to go home. But we'd always get like fried chicken, snacks. Parents would get beer, and we just pull up there and just watch movies. You
know, speaking of that, speaking of the Southside, in the 70s, there were, I think, 4 drive-ins in the, drive-ins in the Southside. It was Lackland Drive-In by Southside, right? And then Loop 13, right across the street where South Park Mall's at, that was Loop 13. In the 70s, I want to say 60s also, 60s, 70s, I used to go there with my parents to watch Spanish movies. They're at a drive-in, which was boring to me. I didn't like I had to go out there anyway, right? And then we go to Mission Drive-In, and then there was the Trail.
I remember that.
The Trail was right here, I think where the Walmart is at.
Or the adult films.
Yeah, well, eventually they showed adult films at a drive-in. Yeah, at the Trail, and then Lackland ended up being an adult film.
The best part about the Trails was the entrance. Remember the big cowboy on the front of it?
Yeah.
That was so, and the lasso, awesome. The neon lasso would whip, didn't it?
Yep.
And
totally different time. Yeah, but that was a good memory. We had 4 drive-ins within, I want to say, 5 miles or something like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, and now you can't even find one.
No. I mean, I know the Mission Drive-In is there, but they don't show movies there. I think sometimes they have a movie night.
Yeah, they'll have movie night for kids and little things like that, but it's not a drive-in movie anymore.
No.
Drive-in theater.
Yeah, I know they have events there and stuff like that. Like, I think they have flea markets or pop-ups or something.
Did you ever go to Mission County Park for like the lowrider festivals?
No, but I'd go to Mission County Park often for the church festivals.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, since I went to St. Leo's, you know, we'd always go to that. You know, that was just a normal thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes people would have birthday celebrations or little picnics and stuff. So I was there regularly, and definitely for the church festivals. That was really awesome.
My stepfather worked for a beer delivery or distributor here in town. And so he always worked the festivals and weekend things to serve beer.
Oh, cool.
And so my mom, me, and my siblings, they were like little babies. We'd all go there and get a plate of food, chicken plate.
Yeah.
Listen to the band play as kids would play on the merry-go-round.
Yep.
And
Good
watch
memory.
the lowriders or whatever was going on. It was cool.
Yeah, I never got to see any lowrider festivals.
That was
car
so
shows.
cool for me because I just loved cars. As
Oh
a
yeah,
kid.
I love hot rods and lowriders and stuff like that, but I never went to any there. One thing I wanted to mention was that it feels so good, to be part of a community like this, and knowing that these missions are here in our hometown, where we were born, where we grew up. That's awesome. Not too many people can say that, right? Mm-hmm. And there are so many things I like about my community. The culture, for example. There's a lot of different cultures here in San Antonio, but there's a lot of nice people here. It's just a beautiful thing. There's a lot of places to see. There is a lot to learn. There's so much history here, and it's just a lot.
Do you ever think about living somewhere else?
I've thought about it before, but I honestly think that I would miss San Antonio because of everything. Everyone that's here. Friends and family. I would miss a lot of things. All the good food. Yep, and it's a good music town, which is important to me too. There's a lot of good live music here. What about you? Yeah,
you said it right. When I'm not here living somewhere else, all I can think about is home. Mm-hmm. I think I don't know if that's what happens to other people, but wherever you're not at is what you pine over. And I can enjoy being where I'm at because it's feeding me, but then I'm like, okay, well, home is something you don't have everywhere, even if you moved 10 times.
Oh yeah.
Home is home, at least for us, in the way we came up, grew up, and care about the areas that we still walk.
I've never lived anywhere else. I've always lived in San Antonio.
Yeah.
I know you have. You lived in other cities.
Yeah, and I even think now I could go back and do this other stuff and visit people and do the stuff I really want to do, but while I'm there, I'm going to be like trying to figure out how I can come back here and get things going again. So, home is, you can't replace it, not for me, not for you, from what you've shared. I think that's part of the reason too, like you were asking me one day, what are you trying to do with your goal or your aim on the research and family? And I guess foremost, it's something that I was intrigued by, that I had elders, people in my family share things with me. And then I took that torch and I found more. And just the detective work and the digging, and then you find something precious. I mean, that's wonderful in itself.
And you're very good at it.
I try. And but the other part of that, I think, is when I'm out there in the community, like when we first met and I was talking to you at the record shop, when I do that with other people and I'm like, hey, what were your last names? And they're interested in like, yeah, it's this, that. I might have some information. And if I don't, I'll try to locate something. And there's people that call me and say, hey, will you talk to this person to help them with their genealogy? I do my best. If I can't, I'm like, here's some ideas. But I think, like, what is it? Why do I do that? I've thought about that a little bit, and I don't know. It's just it's not a job. It's a feeling. There's something that's allowing me to devote that time. To not be idle or to have a different passion. It's given me something that I'm connected to, which makes it a little bit easier, more interesting in a way, because you're connected to it.
I have to say that I've never met anyone as passionate as you. Maybe I haven't met too many people that, are history buffs when it comes to San Antonio or the missions, but you definitely have a passion for it, and you should be doing something, that has to do with that, some type of tour guide or an awesome tour guide.
Well, like I shared with you, it'd be great to start a tour company.
Yes, and we
with
talked
a
about
passenger
that.
van, and we've discussed that a little bit, about maybe being
about
involved.
that.
And we're talking about it right now again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's an exciting endeavor. And the possibilities of things that can be offered to a group like this are large. and you know, it's one day at a time. It doesn't seem like things can happen soon enough.
Yeah.
But someone else is going to do it if you don't.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And
right.
Yeah.
And
You need
that's
to do
okay.
something, yeah.
It doesn't mean one person can just like, you know, grab onto that idea just for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But it sure would be nice to implement that sooner than later, because there's so many hungry people that want to get educated that come to this town, and they're tired of just getting the bland Wikipedia sort of description of what something is.
And I'm sure a lot of people are happy with that, and they'll feel like, oh, wow, you know, I got some San Antonio history. I didn't know anything, but you know, to get details and in-depth stories like what you know, that's a totally different experience right there.
Yeah.
That's like the ultimate thing, you know.
Well, yeah, just like you meeting me and learning a bit more, I learned stuff from someone that gave me some stuff when I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
And I have to thank that person, because without him, family member, giving me a handful of names, 17 names to work from, I was able to turn that 17 names into 247 names in 3 years' time. And then another few years after that, it grew more. I mean, I'm not even going to even guess what the number is in the tree, but I can go back so far that, you know, I went back to 1500 to the occupation coming into, you know, Spain's conquering this region. And I believe that those other family tree works that were already done, because I didn't put them together, they're already done. But I found where my last people that I found connect to those other ones. And then so I just adopted that into my tree, because they're legitimate histories that have been accepted by scholars, family members, etc.
Yeah.
And so to go back all the way to the conquest and then be able to go back even further from that is remarkable. Are there mistakes in the tree? Of course there's some mistakes.
Yeah, for sure.
But I worked so hard at gathering these names from other works outside of my own small works of digging archives, and the others were gifted to me, that you know, it's just an overload of information.
Yeah.
And maybe one day you and I can work at something together like that.
Yeah, we have to, because we're not getting any older.
That's right.
Or younger, I should say. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, that's what I thought you were saying.
Yeah, we're not getting any younger, so
yeah,
that would be something enjoyable to do. It wouldn't feel like a job or a task. You know, we have our daily routine, daily work, and you know, it gets old after a while. You know, you want to do something enjoyable, and
that's
not
right.
that work doesn't suck all the time, but if you do something enjoyable, that'd be.
And there's so much things that haven't been uncovered yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So instead of me uncovering things and feeling like, you know, I found this, you know, it's not like I'm the only one that can see it, and there's other people that know about it, but I found it for me. It would be nice to share that with you too, where now we're finding something together. Yeah. And it feels like the idea that I first started out being interested and curious, it has grown and manifest into what it is, family. Yeah. It's grown into something bigger, and then it surpasses us, because now it's a communal growth. And this city could really do with an upgrade of its scholastics to help children. Like so many young guys and girls are having a hard time.
Oh yeah.
And maybe they're having, I'm not saying this is gonna remedy that. Yeah. But you know, it can sure be enlightening.
Yeah, and affect some
people. For those
people.
that are affected,
Yep, definitely. That's a good thing.
I guess the next things we do from now is, you know, we get together and go to the missions and look at where our grandparents' little houses and jacals were. Yep. Where they were buried before they were taken. Yeah. And where they're buried now after they're being reinterred. Thankful to the descendants and the groups of people that valued that as a cause to see through and succeeded and still are. I always give them their due. Yeah. And because it takes a tremendous amount of energy and their own money to make those things possible. Oh yeah. And maybe you and I will find some new things that we can celebrate together instead of me doing it in my chair at home by myself. I can share it with someone.
Definitely. And like I said, I have some time off next month, and that's going to be part of my plan. You know, I'm not going out of town or anything like that, but I definitely want to do something like that. You know, plan a day trip here, and we'll go visit some spots and places and see things that I haven't seen in years, probably decades. that I visited some of the other missions.
Yeah.
So that would be awesome, man.
And maybe too, in some time, we can go to a ceremony together.
Yes, and I definitely
we can
need
go to
to
a
see
sweat.
that.
We can do something that our ancestors did.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't do it all the time, but I participated and I enjoy a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to doing more of that and sharing that.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, what you described earlier about one of these ceremonies, man, it sounds amazing. And I know, a lot of it can't be documented, because it's a sacred, ceremony. But that's something I would definitely be interested in seeing and experiencing. Yeah, for sure.
I think in time we keep working at this and staying involved.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some things can happen that we won't even be able to guess what that is now.
Yeah.
It's going to be things we weren't even ready for, we didn't know about.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're creating something at the same time. Because you're passing on and sharing this information and experiences where you're from. But then by doing that, you manifest new things that come from it and are birthed out of it. If nothing else, just that feeling of being grounded.
Oh, yeah.
And I've had trouble with that my whole life, like not feeling grounded a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And just being like a tumbleweed. And even though that freedom I needed in my life, sometimes I like the tumbleweed to get stuck against a tree so I can just sit there for a bit,
awesome.
Yeah. And then when the wind blows, I'm like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's like an old way of our ancestors, and because we're all indigenous of somewhere, we're all tribal people.
I totally
The
agree
whole
with
world.
that. Yep, I agree with that, 100%.
And before our Spanish relatives married into our native relatives, we were still, they were still native, and they were still from another place. And for them, those two different worlds that are seeking something, well, one world was seeking something, one just was trying to get through their day. But for those to intersect, it's the story of man and woman. You know, we have always been that. And I too also believe that I come from loving, caring people from the past and the current, but I also come from tyrants and people that want and grab and take.
Yeah.
And there's people out there that are, want to fight against like the tyrant, but I'm like, do you know who you were from? How far can you go back? Because if you actually knew who you came from, you could see that you're not just this, innocent. You're not as innocent and, persecuted as you might feel like you are because of your current woes, right? That we come from people that push that envelope to a point that's unacceptable morally, but it's part of man's life. We've always pushed the horizon, and when you push that, someone's tipping over. And that's the reality, no matter who you are. No human is like not guilty of that push.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's life or death.
Yep.
And the good thing is they came together, because even though some of them were tyrants and some weren't, it takes ingredients to make a dish,
Yeah, you said it.
Well, we don't need to hurt people. You're not a spiteful person, and neither am I. I guess we can be mean if we have to.
Yeah.
But it's not who I want to be. It's not who I am naturally.
Yeah, it's not a good thing.
I'd rather things be much calmer. I don't want them too calm. I like a little bit of the boat moving around.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Sit still.
Yeah,
geez.
it'd be boring.
There's time for that on the next plane, or wherever I'm going.
Yeah.
But I think the more we get together and do this has been great,
Yeah.
Victor. Man, I really appreciate it.
Hell yeah, brother.
I really do.
Definitely,
it's
bro.
great. I tell my mom how I meet these cousins, and she's like, well, that's great. But, there's always sometimes you meet someone and you're like, all right. And
good deal.
I'm glad I have you in my life.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you in my life. It's been a privilege.
Cheers.
And, it seems like we've known each other for a long time.
I know,
Even
right?
though we met last year.
I know.
Yeah.
It's that Southside upbringing.
I guess so.
Not just the family connection. It's from being from the same neighborhood.
Having a lot
6
of
Mile
things
Creek.
in common. Yep. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, when you first met me, and I started talking to you at the shop while you were checking out records, and we laughed, a little bit earlier today, like how, who's this guy talking to me? Because it's your first day off during the week, you're looking at this album, and you shared something with me about the album. What were you
Well, yeah, because I was looking through the first section of the albums, right, at Eddie's shop, and I'm looking through it, and as soon as I'm looking, I see a really cool brand new album, still wrapped, and it was a Killer Dwarfs album.
Yeah.
And I looked at the back, said, "Oh, cool, it has that song Can't Lose," and I love that song. So I said, "I'm gonna get this album." So you and I were talking, and the whole time we were talking, I said, "Okay, that album's there." We went off, getting to know each other, and just you were telling me, that we were related, and you were assuming we were related. We didn't know for sure, but I started telling you, who my mom is and cousins, and you knew my cousin Linda Casas and stuff. So then we just got into this deep conversation. I said, "Well, you know what? I'm going to get this album before I leave." But we went on. We had a couple of drinks there.
Yeah, kept talking.
We kept talking and having a good old time. I totally forgot about the album. I was like, "Man, I forgot about the album." So I'll go over there and get it the next time. When I went back, it wasn't there.
Oh, man.
But it's all good. I have a lot of albums, but you can buy me the album.
Okay, I'll look for it. Yeah, sorry I interrupted your shopping experience.
No,
but it's a good thing I do what I do and talk too much, because we got to meet each other.
Exactly. And you know what? Yeah, for sure.
It's led us here.
Yep, it's led us here. It's led to a good friendship. Yes. Had no idea. We exchanged phone numbers, and I gave you a call, and we got into a conversation over the phone as well. And
sent you some documents.
Yeah, while we were on the phone, he sent me some documents, and I was actually on my way I run my errands on a Saturday, right? That's my day to get my errands out of the way, because during the week, I'm just focused with work and my normal routine. And as soon as I left the house, he said, "I'm going to call Carl." And I called you on my way to get an oil change, and we got into a pretty good conversation, man. I was there waiting and stuff, and we talked for probably like an hour, I think 45 minutes or an hour. And I said, "All right, man, I'll get in contact with you." And I went over those documents you sent me, and there's still a lot for you to share, because I know you have so much information that we need to talk about.
Yeah, and some of this information was gifted to me and given to me.
Yeah.
By my cousin Mickey and from another relative, but then some of it too, I just took what they were giving me to research and found some added things that are associated with that, and it just led me on, this long hobby passion of wanting to know more, and it just sort of overtook everything. It's like detective work. It's like when you're metal detecting or something. You get a beep. Like, wow. So when you're digging through research and archives and you find these little things, sometimes you find something that's a real gem. Yep. And it's just like, wow, this is why I'm doing it. Because, once or twice a year, if you're lucky, you'll get something really great. Yeah. And it just keeps fueling you for the next year and the next year. Yep. And now at this point, before I was like, okay, I got to take all this and kind of like, not hoard it, but kind of wait to share it so I can put it into some sort of order. Exactly. But then I came to the point where I'm like, you know what? Procrastination in life get in the way. And it's best if I just give as much of this as I can to the people that are deserving like myself. So when I meet someone like you, I'm like, hey, okay, well, here's what I have to show you. Yeah. And if there's another line like your Leal side that you want to research, first off, it's about going from you back in time to see if it links up with one of the Canary Leal people. Because if it doesn't, well, Leal, there's, the name could have been someone else's name, but more than likely you do. Oh yeah, and that's what Linda Casas told me. Yeah. And she told me at my cousin's burial, we were getting to a conversation about this, and I had never heard that in my life, about Leal's going back and coming from the Canary Islands. It just caught me off guard. Yeah. And then you mentioned it, so she's done some research, obviously. So that's why I want to get into that and research that part. It's all super interesting. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's amazing what you can find out by doing a little research. Just from what I've researched, like I told you, I got to find out who my 5th generational grandparents are. Yeah. I didn't even know that a year ago. So it's awesome. And they had a super interesting life. Coming into San Antonio, being up in Northeast Texas through documents, and traveling from Vallecillo, Mexico to, Los Adeas up there, Nacogdoches, and the archival material that's out there is just so enlightening, and some of the works that are out there to read, it really gives you, it's like reading a screenplay or watching a movie. Yeah. There's so much information in the deposition of these people giving why they were where they were at the time. I would like to see one day this information be made into some sort of film.
Oh yeah, I think
Because
so
can you
too.
imagine? There's no films about this.
I know, that's what I was just gonna say. You know, there's movies about the Alamo,
Yeah.
right? But why hasn't anyone made a movie about the missions?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, about some of these people like Manuel Diaz.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be
It would
an
be
amazing
fantastic.
story. Yeah,
It would be so. I mean, it could just be a movie, but it could also be a series.
yeah.
It could be, a multifaceted
Mm-hmm.
film that keeps going on with different factions of people
Oh,
in different
definitely.
time periods.
Yeah.
It's unlimited what it can be.
Yeah,
What can be done.
I totally agree.
And I think in the future, as we're moving ahead, maybe these things will come to light. And if they do, I hope we all get to participate.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Because we are the caretakers
Mm-hmm.
of our ancestors' experiences and lives that they led, and it's an honor to be able to know more about them since we weren't there ourselves,
Yep,
and to share with our families and our future generations that are coming,
yep.
and not just our blood relatives, but also the people in our neighborhoods, like you and I growing up on the Southside, being kids in the creek and running around.
Correct.
Those kids need to know where they come from too.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's important.
It's really important.